Hello, dear Wine Fortune podcast listeners and our followers. It's very nice to be back in here. We have now very exciting topic to talk about amazing Bordeaux wines. And we have our guest in here, Coline. Hello to you.
Hello.
So Coline is from Château Angélus. And we talk today more about which producer is Angelus and what's behind of the history, winemaking process, how has been trends changed in the Bordeaux, and also what are the trends of the consumers, differences on the market. So maybe a few words about yourself, Coline. How you got connected with Château Angélus and yeah.
Of course. So I'm based in London, United Kingdom. So the UK is my primary zone that I look after. So I manage distribution and representation of the brand. So that includes, working on our on-trade distribution as well as our private client events. But I'm now starting to do a bit more work in other European markets as well. So Estonia, Tallinn, my first time here. So very, very much.
So what's the first impressions of the Tallinn and Estonia?
Well, I really like the kind of juxtaposition of the kind of concrete jungle and then the very much kind of old town, kind of very traditional building. I think having those side by side is really cool.
And as you heard, you already got quite good emotions from the dinner, one of the good places in Warsaw.
Yes, a strong recommendation from yourself. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. But yeah, when we start about the Angelus side, what makes it such an iconic estate in Bordeaux?
Yeah, I think what makes it such an iconic estate in Bordeaux is, we're talking about really an estate that is fully rooted in history and passion and tradition. So the De Boer family have been in Saint-Emilion for over 240 years. So, it's very few of these larger wineries now that are still not only fully owned by the original family, but operated every day by them as well. So it's very rare and something that is, I think what gives Angelus its soul and makes it the iconic estate that it is. So we have Hubert de Boer, who joined his grandfather in the winery back in 1985. And today he is still our lead winemaker. So in 2024, he'll celebrate his 40th vintage being lead winemaker for Angelus. And, he is quite a figure in Saint-Emilion now. He's also a consultant for over 80 different wineries. So we're very lucky to still have him very much on the team and involved every day. And then Stéphanie de Boer, his daughter, joined us in 2012 as managing director. So for the last 12 years, she's very much been at the helm and, contributing to the growth of Angelus in her own way as well.
Mm-hmm. And through the history, how you see how Chateau evolved over the years? What has been the turning points or most important times in the history?
Yeah, I would say there have been some definite key moments in history and key dates that really mark the evolution of Angelus. So firstly, the wines first started being kind of what they are back in 1920. That's when Maurice de Boer inherited the land from his ancestors and really started making the wine, and by 1955, this was the first classification in the Saint-Emilion appellation, which we were included. So that was the Premier Grand Cru classification. So already by 55, Angelus really had a name for itself. Then we moved through to 85, as I mentioned, when Hubert de Boer joined his grandfather. So he had just finished his winemaking studies in Bordeaux, and then came straight to the family winery. He grew up on the vine, so it was always something that he wanted to do, very passionate. And he arrived with this enthusiasm and really wanting to experiment with the wines and push them further. So he was one of the first in Bordeaux to actually start, for example, doing fermentation in open top vats, aging on the lees, aging in oak even. So you might be surprised to hear that before the 80s, we did no aging in oak whatsoever. So that alone as a stylistic evolution of the wine is pretty significant. And then, other things that Hubert kind of brought to the winery were things like farming, harvesting, vinifying plot by plot, things like being more precise in the selection of the grapes, increasing leaf canopies and grass cover crops. So, things that are commonplace today, but back in the 80s weren't so common. So very much a pioneer in winemaking in that sense. And then in 1996 was the Premier Grand Cru Classé B. And then we fast forward to 2012, where we were Premier Grand Cru Classé A classification, and of course the arrival of Stéphanie de Bois, so the 8th generation of the de Bois family joining as managing director. So Stéphanie had been working in London for 7 years in banking, so she has this great kind of business background. And then after which point she came back to Saint-Emilion to join her father, and they worked really well hand in hand. And thanks to Stéphanie, the Angelus universe has really expanded. So I think where Hubert de Bois really pushed the wines in terms of style and characteristics, Stéphanie de Bois has really been instrumental in the growth of Angelus to create a legacy beyond the wines. So we now, under Stéphanie's leadership, we have a hotel in Saint-Emilion. We have a Michelin star restaurant in Saint-Emilion, and we have 2 restaurants in Bordeaux, one of which is Michelin star as well. We also have a farm, which is the 9-hectare farm about 30 minutes away from Saint-Emilion, on which we have cattle. We grow the produce to supply to our restaurants. So it's really creating this full ecosystem that goes beyond the wine. So I think that the evolution of Angelus is kind of two-pronged in that way. You have the evolution of the wines, and you have the evolution of the full Angelus universe and the export of the wines as well. Me being based in London full-time for Angelus just goes to show how they put the importance on the export and distribution.
And when you look now through the history, Angelus wine, how you see how much has changed the winemaking process? As you told, also like a winemaker is the same quite a long period, and how much has been affected depending of the terroir through the last maybe 20, 30 years, because we all see that climate change and everything is changed quite a lot. How much you see that there has been the influenced by winemaking process, and how much is like a terroir or outside factors changed?
Firstly, to cover the point about kind of the winemaking processes and how this has changed over the years, as mentioned, Hubert de Bois, 40 years winemaker, but what I think is something that Angelus does extremely well is really find this balance between traditional way of doing things and also innovative ways of doing things. So very much not staying stuck in the same ways of making wine for 40 years, but always looking for ways to evolve and introduce new technologies and innovations to the winemaking process. So in 2019, we opened the Carillon cellar. So this is our second cellar, which is based in Castillon, so it's about 5 kilometers away from Saint-Emilion, where the main chateau is for Château Angélus. And in the Carillon cellar is where we produce all of our other cuvées that are not Château Angélus, not the Grand Vin. So the reason for doing this was because Stéphanie de Bois, when she joined, at the time, Carillon was our second wine. So, back in the day, it was made from the younger vines of Angelus. But one of the things that she really wanted to do was to really push this wine, give it its own style, its own identity. And today we can no longer say it's a second wine because it's created from its very own vines and also now in its very own cellar. So, innovations and kind of thinking about developing a style of wine. And then talking about this cellar specifically, the Carillon cellar, it's a very modern facility, unlike anything that you would see in Saint-Emilion, like these traditional chateaus. It's completely different. It has a whole glass facade, 4,400 square meters. So it's, we're talking a big facility where we have a harvest reception area, the vinification kind of vat room, and the aging room. If you were to step inside the vinification cellar, you would see 18 suspended stainless steel vats from the ceiling in this kind of inverted cone shape. So the reason we do this is, from a design and a visual perspective, yes, it's innovative, but more importantly, it allows us to be even more precise in the extraction process of the wines. So we use 3 extraction techniques. So we have the punching down, pumping over, and the délestage, or rack and return. And it's in this phase, délestage, where this kind of gravitational aspect of the suspended vats allows us to be more precise, have this layer of kind of gentle, this gentle approach to the extraction, which is really important for us. So always kind of being slow in the extraction, ensuring we don't go too far, and just taking it slower temperatures and slow. So that's one kind of innovation within the Carillon cellar. For Angelus, Château Angélus, a way that we've kind of adapted a traditional method of aging in oak. So we still age our Château Angélus wines in oak barrels. So we do half the time in 100% new French oak and the other half of the time in oak that's been used once before. However, in 2018, we introduced these large 30 hectolitre wooden barrels, foudre we call them. And there was some experiments being done about aging the Merlot in these, or aging Cabernet Franc. But in the end, the Cabernet Franc they found was more interesting because of the way that, that kind of level of wood integration and the way that it really elevated the aromatic purity of Cabernet Franc.
Okay. But now also about the terroir. Yes, how it has been affected, like a microclimate side, or resistant of the field and.
Yeah. So in terms of global warming, so to speak, it's not so much the warming effects that we have been feeling. It's more like a climate change. So it's more just like kind of more unpredictable seasons that we feel. So in terms of the grape varieties that we have on the terroir, this has not changed. Our main 2 grape varieties are still Merlot and Cabernet Franc. Some people say that Merlot is on its way out because it's a fast ripening grape, and with global warming, will this kind of make a change? So far, it's not something that we've experienced or seen on our terroir. If anything, there's been quite a lot of rain and cooler seasons in the last few vintages. But the terroir is a whole other topic. I don't know if we want to go into this now.
Because when we are looking also into the market and see the involvement of the different brands and labels, then there's when you look like past decades, like 80s, 90s, 70s, you had like some straight understanding which vintages were like greater vintages and which were maybe a little bit not so much. But now you have like every next vintage can be so different. So you don't have like regularity now that you can predict that 5, 6 and 9 and 0 is always like a good, and maybe 3, 7 or something is a little bit not so high. But yeah. And because that is also interesting for our customers with interesting to invest in fine wines, and also collect to make a collectible. It's important to understand how the producers are looking. What's the outlook of the future of the vintages, depending of all the climate, microclimate. And all the quality of the fields and so on. So how much you are seeing also the demand growing for the sustainability and organical side from the consumers? How much they are asking about that even?
To be honest, not that much. I think that we kind of fall into a category that is, quite traditional, and we are organic. So in 2018, we made the commitment towards organic farming, and in 2019 we got our HEV level 3 certification, to it essentially identifies and promotes environmentally friendly farming. But long before this, decades before, the same practices were in place. So the absence of chemical weeding, promoting biodiversity by revitalizing kind of wooded areas, planting hedges, introduction of the beehives. And I mentioned before also our farm. So this farm producing the produce for our restaurants, kind of creating this real circular ecosystem, is central to our organic approach. But our kind of our organic approach, yes, it's great to have the certificate, tick, and all that, but it's a much more holistic approach that we have now. So it's central to everything that we do is really, honouring the land, and keeping that front of mind.
Okay, but when you look also into the taste and aroma and everything else about wine, what's the like a key points what customers are looking for Angelus wines when you compare like some other Saint-Emilion top wines? What's the like key focus for the Angelus wine? What they are looking from this wine?
So for Château Angélus wines, I think something that consumers are always, pleased to discover in it is this relatively high portion of Cabernet Franc. So, nearly pretty much half of our vineyard for Château Angélus is planted with Cabernet Franc. Although this 50%, it's not always represented in the blend because Cabernet Franc is notoriously a more complicated grape variety to grow. It's a lot more sensitive to the climate, more susceptible to diseases. We're very lucky at Angelus to be on this kind of perfect crescent of terroir in Saint-Emilion, where the soil is perfect for Cabernet Franc. Not all wineries, have that soil composition. So for us, in the blends, we have a significant portion of that represented, and that brings this beautiful kind of minty, eucalyptusy spiciness and length in the finish. I think our wines are also incredibly well balanced, harmonious. You start with this dark fruits, red cherries, black berries on the nose, moving through to that kind of cedar box, leather, almost florist floor kind of secondary aroma. Then you have, on the attack, these cashmere-like tannins, a little bit of spiciness, bit of oak, but not overpowering, and this beautiful length in the finish.
Very nicely said. Very nicely said. And you already just touched a little bit topic about the classifications and also through the time from the reclassifications. We saw quite recently new classification also in Saint-Emilion. How much has been affected reclassification in the Saint-Emilion region right now? Is there now more clear understanding for the customer side that what's the a quality or all a overall understanding of the chateau with because we know that it's not only a quality of the wine, it's also awareness of the brand, tourism side from the chateau and everything else. So how much you see that the reclassification is affected of the producers?
So in 2022, we made the decision to step out of the classification. So that was a decision made by Stéphanie Nubert-Dubois and the team. After 10 years of being in a classification, they had learned a lot from all the processes and from regulations, but after that full cycle, decided it was time to step away from it and really just kind of the philosophy and, it's really simple. It's to make the best wines from what they have available from them, from the terroir. And so coming out of the classification in 22 basically signifies this new cycle for us where we, give ourselves this kind of freedom to really make the most out of what the terroir gives us. In terms of how the consumers have responded to this, to be honest, it's been actually quite positive from my side, what I've kind of heard mostly in the UK. I think people very much understand it. I think that, we have trust in our consumers and we have trust that they understand us and that they always know they're going to, get a certain standard that they're after. So I think that having that real brand loyalty is important for that as well, because of course classification can do a lot for wineries. There's no denying that.
Because when I look also some other names and example Vijac who raised to the A class, I actually expected that the price would raise much more when they are making such a step forward. But actually it haven't happened when I look also the secondary market, maybe next year when first decade of the 15 is getting aged. But it seems also for me that these few chateaus as you and also one more told that they don't want to be in this classification anymore. It has been advantage, not disadvantage on the market side also, because you have something extraordinary to tell that we have like a unique like a labeling from this area. How you see also from the price level side that we have seen end of the 2022 that fine wine market has been changed quite a lot. Like Burgundy and Champagne decreased in the price quite a lot after 20-25% of the increase every year in the price. How you see the Bordeaux side and from the Angelus side, how much you have been correlated price in different regions? What's the circumstances in Europe, but how you see also like a demand side Asia example?
I won't be able to speak for Asia or other markets necessarily about the pricing, but I think that you'll be able to tell from our release this year as well that we are very much listening to the feedback, and we are very much listening to kind of what needs to happen on the market, and so we're not closed off to that. But for Angelus and for the brand and the strategy, it's very much a long-term goal and a long-term vision. So whilst yes, we remain open to the feedback and understanding kind of the feedback on the market, we have to take into account also our long-term vision for Angelus and what decisions will have as an impact later on. So it's kind of finding the balance between the two.
Okay, but from the consumer trend side, we are seeing from the younger generation that they're looking more like lighter wines, maybe more non-alcoholic. We see also like top brands are coming out, and also like celebrities are making like some deals with non-alcoholic wines already. So how you see that there is the like trends movement on the market, and how Bordeaux could react on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. I think that, to your point about kind of younger consumers as well, I think for a lot of younger consumers, Bordeaux can be, perhaps a bit intimidating or overwhelming, not knowing where to start. Also, prices being maybe beyond, what they can afford at the time being. So I think it's really important for wineries that can to, expand their range, have more variety available, and to be able to kind of welcome in a consumer at an earlier point. Something that I think that Angelus does really well. So yes, we have Château Angélus. Yes, we have Kaljurand Angelus, but we also have cuvées that are much more accessible, much more affordable, like Tempo d'Angelus, Clos du Milieu. These are wines that are literally designed to be opened sooner. So they have this real fruity freshness. They're designed to be opened right away. They're great also on trade for like by the glass options. I think the idea is maybe a 30-something-year-old will sit down at a bistro, open the menu, see Tempo d'Angelus listed at an attractive price, order it, have this positive association, stay interested, keep educating themselves, and in 15 or so years' time, they might be in a position to invest in their first case of Château Angélus. So it's really about taking them on that journey earlier on. And I think demystifying kind of this idea of fine wine, and, we have a responsibility to make it approachable and open, to welcome consumers. And for sure, on the kind of drinkability aspect, there's definitely been a move, even for Château Angélus, the Grand Vin. If you compare like a 2005 even to like a 2016 and then 22, you kind of see this move towards something with a little bit more finesse, a bit more elegance, a bit more freshness that, I think consumers are really looking for, that high drinking appeal really from the start of the wine's life all the way to the end. I think is super important.
And also when talking about the restaurant side, how much you are seeing effect from the selection on the menu? Because when I think about like strong Bordeaux wines, then I would like to pair it with some good steak or something of the meat. But we all know that there is coming more and more like vegan friendly options, more like non-meat options. How much you see that restaurants have to think much more through how to pair like a strong Bordeaux wines, or we have already restaurants keen so well managed menus that they could already pair with some non-meat options with also strong red wines.
Yeah, I think, you know, the pairing of wine and food is such an art, and I think it's so important to kind of, they go hand in hand, right? So I think that restaurants are always going to want to make that effort to have a beautiful wine pairing option. And, you know, I see no issue with pairing a Château Angélus and a vegan meal. I mean, you know, vegan meals have come a long way. They have richness in their sauces, their flavors. So, you know, I see no issue there. And, you know, I think it's an interesting opportunity to, if anything, explore different combinations. Yeah, I think it's an exciting opportunity.
Very good. Good to hear. But also looking for a little bit in the future, how you see that when I look like at the 21st century, that there was beginning of the first 10 years quite booming from the Bordeaux side, also from the Asia. Then it was like a time for the Burgundy. Now we see there is like looking more options from the New World also. How you see that where is like a strongest markets in the maybe 10 years for the Bordeaux wines? Are there still like a UK or there is coming like some new markets more important?
Yeah, I think that markets like the UK, where you know, the drinking style is still quite traditional. I think we're always going to have consumers there. I think there will always be a strong market. Similarly for France, for example, and you know, Europe, US is growing really well, of course, and you know, the consumption there is completely different to Europe, so it's really hard to compare, but it's a great market for us also. Interestingly, one of the markets that is actually growing at one of the fastest rates for us is Cambodia. So people are surprised to hear that, but you know, so these little kind of pockets of Asia perhaps that might be growing more in the next decade. So interesting to see those stats.
Very good to know. Very good to know. Okay. But also when we are looking like innovations and experiments, how much you're seeing that in Bordeaux producers are trying to make something like a new way, or they're still see that, how you told also that we always have like this concrete amount of the like historical followers for exact chateaus, as you have like Angelus fans, they have like 50 or 60 years, or you're seeing that producers are more and more looking more now innovative solutions and new experiments of the producing.
Yeah, I think definitely that. I think you have to, first of all, you know, you have to move with the times. What people should be talking about you. You want to also keep your, you know, your craft interesting. Innovations and experiments are something that are always happening at Angelus. Currently, for example, we're under renovation at Angelus because we're reconstructing our whole vinification cellar. So we're doing something that has not been done before. Again, with suspending vats. I won't say too much. You'll have to come visit us when it's done. But also experimenting with whites. So we have a white wine that's on the market. It's called Blanc du Milieu. And again, it's vinified in Carillon cellar. And the vines for this are in Castillon. So beautiful terroir, quite similar to what you find in Saint-Emilion with the clay and the limestone composition in the soil. But the varieties that we have in this wine are a combination of Chardonnay, Sémillon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Chenin. So these 4 grapes, you know, it's quite unusual for Bordeaux. So just another example of, always experimenting, seeing what else can be done, being inspired by perhaps other regions and seeing what we can do in Bordeaux.
Okay. And already in the beginning I wanted to ask, but now I think it's quite good to give like advice for the consumers when you have to choose out maybe one very good example from the vintages from the past decade and the first decade, 21st century. So the first 10 years and second 10 years, then which vintages you would choose out for the dinner?
So, okay. So I think 2005 is a great place to start, because it's really kind of your kind of quintessential Bordeaux, quite broad-shouldered, powerful, but still, I think what's interesting to taste about it, pretty much 20 years on, still has this incredible aging capacity left in it. So I think that's a really good place to start. I then also really like 2016, because I think there, as mentioned before, we start to see a little shift in the evolution of the style. Similarly with 2018, actually. I like 2018 as well. That kind of refined elegance that I think consumers now who are demanding, high appeal earlier on would really enjoy. And then 22. 22, it was my first primeur campaign for Angelus. And generally speaking, a very successful vintage for Bordeaux. And for us at Angelus, exceptional vintage. It's already been, it's very young, but already been likened to the kind of post-war greats of 1945, 47, 48, but with this incredible harmony and balance. Actually, for 22 as well, we've created a special edition bottle. So it's a bottle that looks nothing like the other Château Angélus bottles. It's black and it's inlaid with 20-carat gold and mother of pearl. And instead of the classic bell design, it has a design that kind of recalls the astral world to signify the start of a new cycle. So a beautiful vintage to drink, but also an exceptional collector's item.
Very good to know. But when look also at 2005, there's amazing quality, but prices are also usually quite high. When you take also some similar of the quality level, but a little bit a lower price from the first 10 years from this century, what could be similarity? Some 2006 or
2006 is also really good. We actually call the name that we give to our 2006 is Le Bordelais. So again, a very kind of classic Bordeaux vintage. So absolutely,
Very good to know. There is also discussions in wine communities usually that how long cork lasts for the bottle. That usually people are telling that in the history, when we look 40, 50 years back, there was maybe cork lasting maybe 20 years maximum. Now we are seeing that there is much fewer cork mistakes, and the cork lasts also much longer. Do you see also some certain point of the aging period when you are making changing corks, or you see that one cork could last until the opening the bottle also after 35 years?
So I have not been, I haven't experienced a bottle for that long, but I actually was with Hubert de Bois a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying a story how at Christmas last year he opened with his family a bottle of 1928 Château Angélus.
Wow.
Yes, that was, drinking beautifully. So I can only go by that story.
Okay, good to know. And the cork was also very fine?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, but finishing our discussions, maybe last interesting questions. Maybe you have a little bit feedback to tell, but we have also been looking some options because trends in the market are looking ways how to combine innovation in the NFT sides or the collectible in the digital way and the physical assets on the seller. Do you see also that there is on the market more some innovative solutions who are looking cooperation with producers, how to make transparent all the track record for the moment on the bottle, and the other side also you raise maybe also in the future of the value of the wines. Have you heard any possible cooperation interest from the market who would like to engage NFTs of the collectibles to the physical bottles in the cellar?
Yes, yeah, that is a conversation that is starting to happen. One that I must admit we are fairly new to still. So kind of yet to be able to properly feed back on how that kind of, how, you know, the rollout will be over that kind of landscape. You know, Bordeaux is, you know, for the time being, or for us anyway, still a very kind of traditional way of trading. So I think that this question about the NFTs and kind of, having this other layer of value to it is an interesting point. I wish I could say more on it now, but to be honest, we haven't had the experience with it yet.
Yeah, just the feedback side.
Yeah.
Okay, but thank you very much for this insight from the producing side and the consumers. I think listeners got also some quite good ideas which vintages to choose, which trends to follow on the market side also, and I really hope that also the younger generation will find more also Bordeaux top wines, because you can't find like such a quality as a Bordeaux blend too much from the other side of the world.
Very true.
So yeah. But thank you for all the followers for Wine Fortune podcast. Let's see you again quite soon. Until then, let's enjoy the good fine wines. See you.